All right, welcome back to the channel. So we've got a great pay-per-view, doubleheader pay-per-view coming up very, very soon between the Charlo brothers, Jermell Charlo facing Jeison Rosario, and Jermall Charlo against Sergiy Derevyanchenko. Derevyanchenko. And this is going to be a great fight. However, there's somebody out there that is just, might be going a little bit overboard, and that is Sergiy Derevyanchenko, who says that he's going to knock out Jermall Charlo. Let me assure you, dude, that is not the type of fight that is not about to pop off. Let's talk about the fight between Charlo and Sergiy, but really where it's going to end up, hopefully, which is either a fight with Eubank or Canelo Alvarez. Let's talk about those things in this video. All right, welcome back. So we got this great pay-per-view coming up, and I do believe it's this Saturday. Sergiy Derevyanchenko is fighting the WBC champion, Jermall Charlo. Sergiy Derevyanchenko is what you call a perennial contender. He has fought Gennady Golovkin for a championship at the IBF belt, for the IBF, and he lost in a good fight that many people thought he won. He also fought Daniel Jacobs for that same IBF belt, and he lost that fight. But Sergiy Derevyanchenko, Derevyanchenko, put up a good performance, right? Which led to him getting another title shot for the IBF belt against Gennady Golovkin. Excellent fighter. And he says what he's going to do is that he's going to knock out Jermall Charlo. He says Jermall Charlo's never fought anybody like him, seen anybody like him, and he knows what he needs to do to get the impressive win and to get the decision, which is to knock him out. I assume that he's feeling, because a lot of people believe that he beat Gennady Golovkin, that he's going to be up against it on the cards against Jermall Charlo as well, who's the champion. So he feels like he needs to go for the knockout. Now, let's evaluate that real quick. Before I do, though, let me explain to you like one of the things you should do before you go look at a fight and before you put money on the bet on the fight. You should go to BoxRec. Now, one of the interesting things that you'll find at BoxRec, boxrec.com, it's where you see the records, is that oftentimes you'll see a fighter who looks good. You think it's going to be a good fight. He's been through a really good, fight that somebody thinks he won in his last fight, right? But if you really look at BoxRec, you notice, dang, this guy's lost 2 out of his last 3 fights heading into this. And that's the situation with Sergiy Derevyanchenko. He's lost 2 out of 3 fights heading into this. His mind cannot be tremendously confident. And he has to worry about whether or not he's going to be able to get a decision. So if he goes for the knockout against Jermall Charlo, quite honestly, man, that is going to play right into Jermall Charlo's hand. Now, even if you look at Derevyanchenko, when you look at Sergey's record, dude, and you look at the number of knockouts that he has, it's not a lot. I don't think he's had an actual knockout in 3 years, since 2017, because this is 9/22 of 20. If I recall correctly, when I looked at his BoxRec, his last knockout was a TKO that took place in September of 2017. So now we're talking about a full 3 years since he's actually knocked anybody out. And that was a TKO. It wasn't actually a KO. It wasn't something where Devinchenko just knocked somebody out cold. It was somewhere he was beating him up. He outclassed a guy, and it was, an accumulation of punches or something like that wound up getting him those TKOs, because it was a series of TKOs. But there is a difference between a TKO and a knockout. A knockout is, and you can see it on the record, it'll say TKO, technical knockout. It won't say KO. In a KO is something where you knock the dude unconscious. He can't get up for the count of 10. The technical knockout is where somebody just, they might be wobbled or something, and there's a bunch of punches being thrown and the guy's not responding, so they may wave it off. and say, okay, that's a technical knockout. He didn't knock him out, but technically the dude wasn't responding, so we have to stop the fight. Devinchenko has a lot of TKOs. He doesn't have a lot of KOs, which tells me that he's just not that big a power puncher. And you can see that in the Gennady Golovkin fight. You can see that in the Daniel Jacobs fight. He's a very solid fighter. He's a very fundamentally sound fighter. He's going to be, if you make mistakes, he can capitalize on it. But he's just not the type of guy that is going to knock you out. You know what I mean? That's not really in his repertoire. So if he goes for that against Jermall Charlo, I think more than likely he's going to get knocked out against Jermall Charlo if he really tries to come forward and really press the fight with Jermell, man. Because, Jermell is similar to the other two guys that Sergey lost to, both Gennady Golovkin and Daniel Jacobs, in that they're both going to be there. They're moving forward. They're right there for you. I mean, they're not right there for you to hit, but they are standing in front of you, have good footwork. They've got good head, got good head movement. But there's somebody that's really just coming behind a really hard, not just coming behind a very crisp jab, straight right hand, left hook, right. And the fact that Jermall Charlo has one of the best jabs in boxing. I mean, his jab is absolute piston-like, man. So I could see Jermall Charlo beating Sergiy Derevyanchenko really just off the jab. But the idea that Sergey is going to knock him out is just, man, it doesn't make any sense to me, man. And I think that would probably that's an outcome that you can almost just brush off. If Sergey Derevyanchenko has a chance to win this fight, he's going to have to win this fight by a decision. Now, he might, there's an off chance he might be able to wobble Jermall Charlo, but I just don't see it, man, because even when you look at like Daniel Jacobs and Gennady Golovkin, I think that Jermall Charlo is a bigger guy than both those guys are. Jermall Charlo is like, and I would say this about Jermall Charlo a lot at 154, still saying at 160, I have no idea how a guy that is that big can consistently stay down at 154, stay down at 160 pounds, man. That is a big, big man. And I just don't think that Sergey Derevyanchenko is going to have, I don't think he has a shot against Charlo in this fight. And it looks like the fight, when I look at the box rec and I look at how it's set up and I look at the fights for Devinchenko over the last couple of years, it makes sense when Jermall Charlo says that he was the one that picked Sergey Devinchenko. And because he thought that would be a good fight for him. So you got to worry, you definitely got to worry when the guy, who's the champion, went out and looked for Sergey Devinchenko to fight. Which tells you that he's already got a game plan in his mind. He really thinks he already knows what he can do with him. Man, it's just going to be, I see Sergey Devinchenko getting stopped. I see Jermall Charlo looking excellent in the fight. And really having one of a big signature win. Well, I wouldn't call it a signature win, but a dominating performance that he didn't get in his last fight against Brandon Adams. But he did get against that Hogan dude who he knocked God dog. I think he flipped him head over heels or whatever. So I'm looking for big things out of Jermall Charlo in this fight. Now, what most likely is going to happen after this fight, though, I think with Jermall is really the big issue, or, the thing that interests me the most, because, there's rumors that Canelo Alvarez is in negotiations to sign a contract with either Showtime, the PBC. I don't think ESPN is in play, but all that stuff going on with DAZN and Canelo opens up the opportunity that Canelo could be fighting in the near future on Showtime or on Fox. And if that's the case, that's just a really big win for Jermall Charlo, and it sets up what could really and truly be an excellent pay-per-view fight between the two, Jermall Charlo and Canelo Alvarez. And I think that could be a mega pay-per-view type of situation, man. There's a lot. I think people in the mainstream media and boxing fans that don't really pay close attention to American boxing, underestimate the value of Jermall Charlo, especially when you put Jermall Charlo on the stage with Canelo Alvarez, because their names have been synonymous with the fight for a long time, man. At 154, 160. And it would only be right. The other guy that, because, I think that the Canelo Alvarez fight is possible, especially if he comes over to Fox and Showtime. But the other fight that I think might even be more realistic Sooner is the fight with Chris Eubank out of the UK, a guy that used to fought in the 168-pound world boxing super series. He had lost at 160. I think he lost at 160 for the WBO belt against Billy Joe Saunders. But he's a very, very good. In his last major performance, he knocked out who did he knock out? James DeGale. He also knocked out Yaldemir, who is the next guy that Canelo Alvarez is thinking about fighting. So I would very much look forward to a fight between Jermall Charlo and Chris Eubank, and I hope that either that or the Charlo fight pops up after this Devinchenko fight. But if you don't put your money on Sergiy Derevyanchenko knocking out Charlo, I cannot see that happening. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for your support in the live streams, in the super chat, through the super chats, also in the channel members and the Patreon. Thank you guys so much for your support. And with that, I'm out. Peace.